Hi, I'm Shamita Kumar. I'm a self-awareness and empowerment coach, and I ask you to tune in to Voice It Out podcast.
Hi, it's Amrita, and I'm back with a new episode of the Voice It Out podcast from a new abode. Welcome to my new house, kind of. Today, I'm talking to another interesting guest, and I'm really excited to have her on the podcast. And it's our first episode in a new studio, so what an auspicious occasion. So she is a self-awareness coach. She does a lot of stuff around spiritual healing and connections and just generally stuff that we've talked about on this podcast before, to do with mental health, to be at one with yourself, and just generally be the best version of yourself that you possibly can be. It's Shamita Kumar. Hi, Shamita.
Hi, Amrita.
How are you doing?
Good, good. It's such an honour to be here, and particularly in your new studio as well.
Yes, so new studio. So we hope you like the new studio as well. So I'm really excited to have you on. Purely because, like I've said, we've spoken about so many of these themes in our previous episodes, in previous seasons, with guests, without guests, with my co-host Shama as well. And I think the first thing I have to ask you is, what made you get into this area? And is it through a personal experience you've been through that has led you here?
Yeah. So my personal journey is, I went through some, what I would call dark times. And I suppose a lot of people may have heard of the reference going through the dark night of the soul. Yeah. And it's not like you go through it only once in your life. You can go through it many periods. But this particular period led me to embark on a spiritual journey. And when I realized how transformative that journey was personally for me, the mentors that were there for me, the guides that were there for me, I thought, well, I could do this for other people, because this is phenomenal, particularly in Asian culture.
Yeah, I can totally understand that. And I just wanted to ask you, when you said that you were going through a dark time, is that did it provide some light, I guess, and did it kind of make you reevaluate your own life maybe?
Completely. I mean, you know, we grow up with a lot of conditioning, with a lot of the shoulds and the shouldn't. And I didn't identify with a lot of it. It was almost like I'd realized that my identity was associated with something that was being provided for me rather than it being self-exploration. And this journey has been a lot about my own self-discovery through spirituality, through understanding the connection with like material life and spiritual life, but not separating them both. Just understanding whole about me and connecting that to myself, and then, of course, helping others now.
How did that make you change the vision, I guess, that you had of yourself previously? Because I feel like, as a typical Scorpio that I am, you know, like we have that kind of symbol of the phoenix.
Yeah.
And for me, I know in my star sign and in my life, I felt like I have kind of reinvented myself so many times. But obviously I can relate that because that's the kind of traits that I have. But how about you? Like, how did you feel personally that, you know, like you were going through an experience, and what led you to yourself, I guess, is what I'm asking. In terms
of, sorry, could you just elaborate on that a little bit?
So you said that you obviously were looking at self-exploration and you realised that you basically, maybe you weren't being the version of yourself without the outside, I guess. So what led you, what do you think led you to that?
Well, there were experiences, personal family life. My own journey of, for example, when I got married, I realized it was, I was doing things for the sake of doing it. It didn't feel fulfilling to me. Okay. And so, for example, even for my background is, I studied law and at university, and it was like, why did I actually study law? It was like so many different things I was exploring and didn't understand why I was doing them, not realizing the motives behind them. And that took me to a journey of, I needed to understand what was the real intention to why I was doing something. Yeah. And when you're not feeling happy within yourself, it doesn't allow you to do something wholeheartedly.
Of course.
And that's where it took, that's where I explored.
So I think a lot of people have probably been in that position, but not had, I don't know how to explain it, maybe the clarity of mind at that time, or just not had the right approach to something, because you can be clouded by a lot of things, right?
Yeah.
So what do you think you had at that time to sort of actually really truthfully be yourself and be like, you know what, this isn't making me happy. This isn't the kind of person maybe you want to be. I want to be this kind of person, and life factors are not allowing me to do that.
I didn't feel free within myself. And freedom is a personal thing to everybody. So it's not what might be freedom to you is not necessarily freedom to me. But I didn't feel like, people would say to me, you're very expressive, but I still felt my expression was to people please. It wasn't an expression that actually I felt was coming from a deeper part of my soul. It felt like I was doing it. So Amrita, what do you like? Oh, okay. So I'd say things and do things just to make sure that you were okay. And inside, it felt like an inner conflict that didn't resonate with me.
Did you find it difficult putting yourself first in those situations? Like you said, in that particular example, you said you would people please. So what about you?
I didn't put myself first.
That's so, you know what, I'll be honest with you, that is so refreshing to hear. Not in a horrible way, but we actually did a whole episode about why women struggle to put themselves first. And there's a sense of guilt, which we identified. Did you have that sense of guilt, and did you ever identify where that came from?
It's more than guilt. It felt like shame.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because we are taught to be subservient to a certain degree that, and it's not even like a black and white print, you need to be subservient. It's more like, this is how you need to be as a woman. This is how you need to be as I mean, there were times when I was growing up, for example, it's like at home, you're Indian. Outside, you're still maintaining your Indian culture, but you've got to fit in with another culture as well.
Yeah.
And whilst I was born and brought up in this country, I was looking at my examples of my parents who had moved from India to identify with the culture over here. So it was a mix of things. And if I was to be expressive, it's, oh, you're not meant to be like that. You'll be a troublemaker. No one will really want to know you, or you won't even be able to get married. That's the kind of things that were said. And this isn't to say it was coming necessarily from my parents. It was just coming from societal perspectives and views. And it was like, this doesn't sit right with me. It's like, and then my mum, for example, she was quite religious. So I always grew up with like a spiritual foundation. And I didn't know how to identify with any of it. And what was the connection? It's like, I'm told that, believe in God, but still do things which may not align to that. And then I found a lot of contradictions, which caused me to feel very conflicted within.
How do you tackle that when you are feeling conflicted? Because I think you've explained in your personal example, but I think a lot of us, in so many times in our lives, feel conflicted. Yeah. But again, like I said earlier, we might not have the clarity of thought, the clarity of mindset at the time to kind of, know that is how we are feeling, and we get caught up in all the external things that come into play in general life.
When you don't, for me personally, I have become very in tune with my feelings, and that's where self-awareness comes into it.
Yeah.
You understand your trigger points. So the time that I felt conflicted, not to say that I still don't, because, it's a journey, it's not a destination. Healing and understanding is not a destination. But what I would find was that something within me did not feel right.
Okay.
That allowed me to then trust my intuition. It was a process. It wasn't an overnight sort of, a thing that happened to me. And what allowed me to then, what I explored within that was someone, like, you could be saying something's A, for example, and I would say, well, actually, I can see that it's clearly B, but they're saying it's A. But why am I afraid to speak up? Why am I afraid to assert what I feel is right? What is this? What is this feeling within me? That's what took me on on this path.
That's so interesting. But also, even though you are a self-awareness coach and you've said you are very spiritual, how does the mental health aspect come in to that? Because I feel like from an outside point of view, and to hear you talk about all of these things, I feel like your mental health has probably gotten stronger because you are so aware of yourself. But that can obviously not always be a positive thing. As I know myself, it's not always a positive thing to be very self-aware, because in my experience, sometimes you are sensitive to things that other people are just not sensitive to. That could be about yourself. It could be about anything. So how do you deal with that kind of thing in your, like, in terms of your mental health?
I don't separate them.
Okay.
So mental health for me is a part of your whole well-being. So we tend to have, as humans, we tend to fragment things and compartmentalize. That can serve us to some degree, and it does, and it can be healthy when we need to put something aside to just get on with something. But I've learned that the more you brush under the carpet will rise and rise and rise, and eventually you will trip over it, fall flat on your face as a result of it, metaphorically. Now, with mental health for me, I find that we have these, this is mental health, this is physical health. I learned that actually my well-being in totality needs to be looked at, rather than it being just about this is physical health, this is mental health. Yeah. And whatever's going on in your mental state of being will inevitably impact your physical.
Of course, yeah.
And everything around it, your relationships, and not just relationships with your spouse or partner, with your parents, with your siblings, with your friends, colleagues, relationship with nature, relationship with money, everything that we as humans are so interconnected to. But we are taught that separating everything is a healthy approach. But if you have a box with different compartments, you pour liquid, what happens to it?
It obviously goes everywhere.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
So our state of being, our state of mental health is connecting to the feelings. So, for example, if someone says they're suffering from, and I'm not a medical practitioner, so I will put that disclaimer there, but if they're suffering from depression or something to that degree, how they're feeling about themselves is going to impact everything in their life. And with like, say, for example, depression, or you're feeling low, understand what is the trigger, what is going on deep. And this is the work that I do, because it's often in the subconscious, that there is something deeper going on. There's a deeper issue. And everything else that's happening there, what we classify as anxiety, depression, is a result of something deeper. So it's unearthing that. And so the subconscious mind, I think statistically, it's about 80 to 90% we think with our subconscious mind. And that, think about 10 to 20% is only what you're consciously doing.
Yeah.
Your behaviors, your actions, everything is subconscious. If you do not, you cannot intervene in a world that you don't know. So you need to intervene in it for yourself. That will help you to bring a balance of what your actual state of, your mental health and well-being is, where it is.
So I think the only thing that I can ask you is, not everyone is good at identifying that it's not a separate thing. And I think it in recent years, I think definitely in the UK, it's become one of those things that is at the forefront, that people understand that if your mental health is not great, or something triggers, whatever triggers you have might trigger you, whatever, on any day or whatever, if that's not quite right, then you're right. It affects absolutely every single area of your life. But at some point, there's going to be a time where you need to make sure that your mental health is good in order for everything else to kind of, it's like one cog in the wheel kind of thing. But if that cog gets stuck, you're stuck, essentially.
Absolutely, yeah.
But so when you do this work with whoever you work with, how easy or how hard is it for you to explain that this is literally the crux of everything, basically?
So when a client comes to me, for example, we identify what is it they're trying to work on. But my first and primary question is, how do you want to feel?
Okay.
So it's a bit like intention setting. So, for example, someone says, well, I want to feel good within myself. And what does that actually mean? How does that actually, how do you know what good feels like? And they're like, I feel content, I feel fulfilled. Right, okay, so that's how you desire to feel. I'm giving you an initial coaching session here.
Amazing.
How do you desire to feel?
Yeah.
And you go, and that's where we start to unpeel the layers of the conditioning, the inner child. So I do inner child work.
Okay.
What are these aspects of us that have brought you here today to feel the way you are currently feeling and how you actually desire to feel? That in itself is like an aha process. I won't say aha moment because you don't flip a switch. It's not like flipping
absolutely.
a switch. It can, miracles do happen, but generally it's not flipping a switch. And you learn so much about yourself during that process that you identify with what is it that, mentally, physically, everything, that might be stopping you or blocking you subconsciously from whatever you're looking to progress towards.
So that kind of inner work I wouldn't say in my experience, but just generally when I look at what you're talking about, I feel like that is sometimes quite a lonely journey to be on. And it probably is a little bit kind of, I guess it awakes emotions that are not always positive because you are admitting to yourself sometimes the issues that you've grown up with. Maybe you might have had certain experiences that have led you to, obviously, we all have experiences that have led us to be the kind of adult that we are now. How do you kind of, I don't know if the right word is support, but how do you support, I'm going to use it anyway, how do you support those kind of negative feelings that come out of that? Because I think the grand picture of it, in the big picture of it, it's a great thing to know yourself really well and to go on that journey and to understand yourself better. And kind of, I always talk about sitting with your feelings, which I think is really hard for anyone to do, and really admit to yourself, okay, why am I feeling like this? What is the actual thing that's begun this feeling for me? But how do you deal with those negative emotions, the things that get you down in that process?
So that's why I say get a mentor. So for me, it was, I needed a mentor. I needed a coach. I needed whether it was a therapist, because you need that support. It's like, how do we learn at school? We have teachers.
Yeah.
Yes, later on in life, we can do self-study, but generally we have teachers. Spiritually, we have gurus, we have guides, mentors. And even today, I would say I've come to understand the importance of them. And I'm not saying it just because I'm a coach. I, as a coach, also have my own coaches, my own mentors that help me when I'm having those sticky moments or periods. And you're absolutely right, Amrita, to sit in the feelings, but it can be the most uncomfortable and horrid place to be in.
Yeah.
And I use this example of the lotus flower. So, for example, a lotus flower, where does it grow?
In the water.
But what kind of water?
How am I going to answer this?
Muddy, swampy waters generally,
it's
right?
Not clean,
It's not clean. So imagine we, as we're as humans, we're lotus flowers. We have to grow in the mud. That's where our expansion is, and then we blossom.
Yeah.
Touching this, we blossom, and it's the same analogy for us that our sticky stuff, the subconscious mind, and all the experiences that it holds from our childhood, from when we were in the womb, energetically and I do energy work primarily. The experiences that we've taken through ancestry, like for example with our paternal mothers, fathers, grandparents, and our ancestry makes a big difference in our life as well, of what we've carried through the lineage. We can unearth a lot of stuff, like you said, that we just do not like. And the lotus flower has to grow through that. So same thing is how can we support ourselves is firstly trying to understand that don't pop a pill to run away from it. Totally. What is it? What is it that's actually going on? Because when you pop a pill, you're never really going to determine what's going on.
Almost a temporary fix as well, if it is a fix. Yeah, so I do totally agree with that, because I feel like in recent years I've tried to do this myself, just in myself, to just sit with my feelings. So it could just be that I've had a really bad day, but what has caused that bad day? Why have I been frustrated? And I try to sit with it and understand in my own self was this actually to do with today? Or was I frustrated yesterday about something? Or did something happen last week which has thrown up something today? And it's tough, I'll be honest with you. It is really tough to admit to yourself that you are in this place where you kind of don't want to be feeling like that, but also you can't help it. Yeah. I think it is a really helpless feeling.
It's also to know that you're human. And just like, I mean, I use we're in England, I use the analogy of the British weather. You can have 4 seasons in one day, and why can't humans? And we have this thing, bittersweet. We have that because you can simultaneously feel 2 emotions.
Yeah.
Like, for example, when my own father passed away, it was over 10 years ago. I remember my brother and we cried and we sat there and said, wow, it was amazing because the way he went, for us, his life was a celebration because of what he gave to us. But of course, there's sadness, there's grief.
Of course, it is sadness.
So we felt simultaneous emotions. Yeah, as humans, we're like, well, I should always be happy. I should always feel hurt. And I'm like, you're human.
Yeah.
Human life isn't just for happiness, it's for everything. And that's how we will grow. Human life is also not for stagnation. It's here for us. We're on a journey. We're here to learn something about ourselves. Yeah. If you believe in karma, if you believe in reincarnation, you'll know that we're a spirit soul, but we've taken on this human body to experience something. What is that experience? What is your dharma, as we would say in Sanskrit? Yeah. What is it we're here to learn? Yeah. Not just, I'm on a conveyor belt. By the age of 16, I should have done my GCSEs. By the age of 18, A-levels or BTEC. And then I'm off to university. Then I get married. Then I have kids. Then I buy a house. Then I have... It's much more than that.
Yeah, it definitely is.
Much more than that. And I think those pressures that we also put on is by a certain age you should have done something is also a part of why a lot of people struggle with their mental health.
I was just about to say the same thing. So very neatly, you've said exactly what I was going to say, because obviously society puts this on us, right? That by a certain age, you need to be doing this. Now you need to be studying. Now you need to be doing this. Now you're married. Now you have kids. And it's one of those really random things where it's really difficult to break that in your own mind because everyone says the same thing. And also, I think it's not a pressure that only society puts on you. A lot of the time it's a pressure that your close ones put on you as well. And to break out of that and still be your authentic self and be like, no, I'm not going to settle. I'm waiting for the right person. Or no, I'm not going to do what you told me to study because I'm interested in this. And I think that is something that we've spoken about definitely again on this podcast. We've spoken about those kind of pressures that we all feel. But I think in the British Asian community, we still feel like that. You might think that current or the next generation gets it different. Yeah. But with social media and all the rest of it, they get it in a different way, but it's the same thing.
And they get it in an overload. I mean, so I do, work with some of quite young people as well. And when they come to me with questions about, well, my father said that I should be doing this, or my mother, or actually, but I don't want to be doing this. And now we have this mix where, what do they identify as? And there's a whole load of new things that I didn't experience when I was growing up. But the next couple of generations are experiencing, they're being exposed to a lot more.
Yeah.
Which isn't helping their well-being.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you're absolutely right in terms of saying, well, society dictates a lot of things. But then I ask, who is society? We are society.
Exactly.
And there's also a lot of judgment. It's understand. This is why I love to peel back the layers so that people can connect to their authentic self, as you said. But we don't often know what the authentic self is until we've done a little excavation.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally
which
agree
I think
with that.
is so important.
It is important, but I think there are obviously so many people who don't go on that journey. And maybe it kind of, if you think of it as a water in a saucepan, it overflows, right?
Yeah, it does.
And it's one of those things where I would recommend, prioritizing stuff like that. Just if you want to understand yourself and you find that you're unhappy in whatever way, I would say prioritize it. And even if it does throw up the negative emotion, I feel like going through that is kind of better on your journey. I would say that because I feel like I've done that for myself.
I 100% agree with that because it's not easy. There is support. Another thing people put is like, well, it's I don't believe this is a luxury anymore. It's a necessity.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just as our physical health is a necessity, our mental, like, to compartmentalize it at this point or to separate it, it's just as important. And it might not be everyone's journey to go very deep, but even at the surface, even to understand yourselves to a certain level, I feel is very important.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I don't know how else to stress. Like, I feel like everyone's different, but I still think everyone needs to or should go into the journey, only because I think it makes you stronger in the end.
It does. It really does. But it's like anything. I have like clients come to me and they say, well, how long do I have to work with you? And I'm like, well, that's entirely up to you. Yeah. But I would say a minimum of a certain period. And they said, well, why is that? And I said, well, for example, if you are a gym goer, how long does it take you to build a six-pack?
A long time, I think.
Right?
Yeah.
And they're like, well, I haven't got a six-pack yet. And I was like, well, how long have you been going to the gym?
Yeah. Don't expect it on the second day or something.
And it might not be your primary goal, but it's like this healing. We can call it healing. We can call it self-awareness. We can call it connecting to self. It's a journey.
Yeah.
Some people, they work with me for 6 months. Some people, they've been with me for 5 years. And everyone is unique. And some people just want the continuous support.
Yeah.
Because
I can understand that.
They're not coming to me for a specific reason like, I just want to build confidence or overcome anxiety, because that anxiety has a root. That lack of confidence has a root. Let's explore what it is that you're feeling. And so for the work I do, I do experiential healing. It's coupled with NLP. It's I do shamanic practice, and people are like, whoa, what is all this? I said, well, it's actually soul work. It can go as deep as you want it to. And it's mindset related. But I don't look at it as just your mind or just the soul. It's collective.
Yeah, it's everything. One thing connects to the other thing, right? Yeah. So if you don't mind me asking, I feel like you're in this role that you've obviously mentioned so many different things that you do. This is outside of a day job, can I just say? This woman is amazing. As all women are amazing.
Thank you.
I think I just want to ask you, because I feel like along the way, you would have obviously taken on someone else's trauma. And how do you deal with that? Because I think it's really important to identify that in yourself. And I asked someone else this question. They were like, I cleanse and I cleanse and I cleanse, and I get my mum to like throw whatever it is on me to get the kind of negativity out. But what do you do, and how important do you think that is in order for you to be in this position where you can help others?
Yeah. Firstly, I look at it as a blessing. And yes, I do very deep energy work. I do take on other people's stuff. And it can often be very, very difficult. And there are times where I'm feeling a little vulnerable in my own life and experience. And what I do is, my first point of call is prayer. I have a deep belief and connection with Krishna, for me, God. And he has many incarnations, and I ask for him to protect me, to cleanse me, to help me to offer the trauma that I may have, or the energy that I may have taken from somebody else, and offer it to him, for him to deal with it. I work with angels. I do cleansing. I do the cleansing with beautiful sage and Palo Santo, but it's really through prayer.
Okay.
And firm belief as to why I do this. And you see, a lot of people, we call ourselves empaths.
Yeah.
I am an empath, but I don't like to use it as a label as, hey, I'm an empath, because even understanding how did I become an empath is because I grew up in a family where and as much as I adore my family, I love them, but like most families, we've gone through our own experiences. And to try and understand somebody's emotions was the way that I felt in terms of my language is how I got love and how I was accepted in that in the family. So I learned how to pick up on energy. I could walk into a room and think, okay, this has happened, or something's going on, and I can, I can detect where somebody is energetically, whether it's my mum, my dad, my grandmother, or anybody else in the house. And so becoming an empath means that you have to, firstly, for me, it was identifying what's mine and what's somebody else's. So when I take on or someone else's energy, I know it's not mine, and then I offer it. That I don't need to. And if there is that I've taken on, is there something for me to learn about myself in this? Because I don't believe in coincidences.
Yeah.
And that personal experience there'll be something in there for me to learn as well.
That's so interesting.
I could go deeper if I really went there.
I love that your faith came into play then, because that is an unfaltering kind of belief, right?
It's a root, and I pray. Everybody has it, and it doesn't have to be like God or religion. Have your ground. A strong tree will not be withered by a storm so easily because it has deep roots.
I love that.
We need deep roots.
That's so cool. I'm going to remember that. I'm going to go to the end of our episode. I feel like I could go on talking for about hours.
Me too.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think, it's been a really enriching episode. And nice to hear you talking about this, actually.
Thank you.
But if you don't mind, I'm going to go on to the this or that section.
Oh.
This or that section is 6 questions kind of relating to what you do, but also some that are totally not relating to what you do. Are you ready?
Rapid fire round. You can try.
You don't have to be rapid, and you can explain your decisions if you feel to. Okay. Beach or forest?
Oh, I absolutely love both. But in this moment, I'm going to say forest.
Amazing. Incense or candles?
Incense. I like both again, but incense.
I feel like that's the Indian in me. I would have chosen that too. I feel like I might know what you say here. Inner work or outer work?
Oh, inner work for sure.
Morning affirmations or evening reflections?
Can I change the morning affirmations to prayer?
Of course.
Yeah, for me,
I think that's
morning
very
time
similar.
is asking for how can I serve? It's very, very important for me because that keeps me aligned, and alignment, and we haven't spoken about alignment, but alignment and our values, perhaps another session, Amrita.
Why not?
Knowing our values and keeping in alignment with those values is what sets the intention and the energy for the day and weeks.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that. Indoors or outdoors?
Depends on the British weather.
Oh, God. We can never depend on the British weather, as you know.
I do love the outdoors. I do feel a real connection, but I'm also a little bit of a hermit at times because I feel I need to protect my energy, so I will be indoors as well. I'm both, actually.
Okay. Last one. Time travel to the past or to the future?
Past.
Oh, interesting.
Past is a treasure trove for our future. And we cannot move healthily to the future if the past is holding us back with shackles.
True.
Which is the subconscious.
It is.
So there you go.
Wow. And that brings the episode to an end. I don't really know what to say to end this episode. It's kind of a bit random. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed talking to you. And as you said, maybe this deserves a second session. So I'm not ruling that out at all. Could you please share your where we can find you on socials?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram at Shamita Kumar Coach and on Facebook as well.
Cool.
And professionally LinkedIn if you want.
Go and follow, go and befriend, go and connect. So I just want to say, apart from saying thank you to you for such an amazing episode, I want to say thank you to DJ Shy Guy who created our jingle. And you can find us on at Voice It Out Podcast on Instagram. And you can email us if you have the intention to say anything to us, to recommend anything. We are always open. It's voiceitoutpodcast@gmail.com. And I just want to say thank you to Shama, who has been working behind the scenes, and her work has not gone unnoticed. That's what I'm going to say. And neither has her waving. I am now signing out. And just remember, we don't want to keep it in. We want to voice it out. Bye.